Thank you for taking the time to review this. My name's Lawrence Bilson, and today I'm going to be taking you through the Nexus Frontier Tech core solution for data extraction from manual documents for the process of financial spreading. Let me share my screen and take you through. Before I started, I just wanted to touch on this slide. I'm not going to go through a whole presentation, but what it's important to understand is that we have a number of clients globally who are using our tools, of which we have different modules within AI. And all of those support the automatic decision process of financial institutions, whether that's for credit perspective, some sort of portfolio management, or a compliance angle, or indeed for fraud. So where do our solutions fit in? We fit into these bottom three layers where the AI algorithm is able to identify information and extract data from any type of document, manual, PDF, photograph, a screwed up piece of paper that's just been scanned. And we extract this information and enrich the data that we extract. And when we say enrich, we mean we process it and put some understanding to that data to align it for the process that the financial institution wants to use it for. So for the purposes of this demo, the data that we extract are financial statements. When we take those financial statements, we extract the information usually from scanned financial statements, and then we put them into rows and forms that are useful for understanding the financial statement of the company, but then being able to take that data and use it for financial spreading, and also to store that data for further use. The next layer that we offer, or that our platform covers, is the validation for compliance and governance. So as well as extracting the data and enriching the data, we also have a level of validation. So that means that we're error checking, making sure that the data that we're taking, hasn't got any issues with it. We have some clever coding that looks for any potential errors with an alert to say, this is unlikely to be part of the financial statement. Please go back and check that part of the document and that very specific part. And we can also do that based upon some sort of audit criteria. So if auditors come in and they want to look at a certain number of files that have a certain figure in, we can go back and extract those and look at those from a compliance and governance point of view. And then finally, what we have is the dashboard, the final results, where we're able to apply some level of analytics over that and some calculations on top of that. So the calculations can be as detailed as you want them to be, and they can be built up and they can be independent, and per the bank's need. And the dashboard and the analytics on the dashboard can be how the system is performing, how the users are performing, the kind of time it's taking, the error rate that's happening, the types of documents that are coming through. So we give you full transparency. And the data that comes in is usually from data repositories that aren't centrally available. So this is data that isn't already stored, and it's data which is useful in the process of this decision automation. So we take that data in, we digitize that data, and we allow the banks to have access to that data and to store that data for their ongoing purposes. Okay, so let me go straight into the demo. The purpose today is just to show you how we process, extract, and financially do the spreading on some financial statements which you would be familiar with. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I've selected two. If I show you these, I took STC because it was a large one and the most recent one. And then I took a random one, which I think is a property management or maybe a property development company, which again is just a different style, different font, different layout. So I thought it was worth comparing the two and how they process. So if we take STC to begin with, I'm just going to drag this in to kick it off. Go. Okay, so now the solution is running in the background and it's extracting, it's identifying the areas on that document. I think there's 22 pages on this one, and it's identifying what's relevant for financial spreading, and it's understanding those areas and then taking them. So let me just go to the document so that you can see, excuse me, which document it is that we're looking at. One that I'm sure you're probably familiar with. So it's the STC first quarter of 2022. Obviously, we've got 22 pages, and I can't select it. So OCR probably wouldn't, in this case, be efficient enough to run, which is fine because our solution doesn't rely on OCR. We're using natural language processing to interpret the characters and how they fit into financial spreading. As you can see, the layout's not perfect. It's a lot better than some others, but it's not perfect. And we look at these images and we're able to extract them. So even if this paper was creased or folded and then scanned, it wouldn't affect us as long as none of the digits were impacted by that fold or crease. Here you see it goes from portrait to landscape. Again, our system doesn't care any format. We're able to read that and we're able to look at that. So this is the file which is currently processing in the background. Just minimize that one. And what I'd like to say is the time that this takes, let's see how long it takes, we can confirm that, but the time that this takes is proportionate to the amount of memory that you apply to be using it. So the algorithm itself can run concurrently without any problems and almost instantly, as long as the memory of the solution which is hosting it is able to keep up. So this is a dev environment, which we use for demos and testing, which is a very lightweight environment, currently hosted in AWS on their servers. And I think it's probably hosted, offshore somewhere. I'm not entirely sure, but certainly the memory usage is quite low. We know that, and we know when we come to deliver a client project that usually the time that it takes within this dev environment is approximately double the amount of time that it takes once we get it into a production environment and once we hone the algorithm. And that's another important point to remember, is that these are true AI proprietary algorithms which are running. And what that means is the speed is there, the accuracy is there, the complexity is able to be calculated, but also the learning is there. So the machine learning, which is a real thing, looks at the types of documents that you're processing, looks at the types of changes that you may make to it, the usage that you take from that financial spreading, the adjustments you make within the financial spreading, and it learns from that, and the algorithm starts to get better and better. As an example, one of our largest customers, when they first took one of our AI models, they were getting an accuracy rate of around 90%. And then within 6 weeks, their accuracy rate rose to around 98.4%. So it was an incredibly steep curve, an increase in the quality of the algorithm, and it will continue to increase slowly, much slower now, until it gets better and better and understands. So it takes this document, understands it, improves on this document, and it can run this document, and it can extract the information. We can do this for any number of documents. So the one that we're showing today is a financial statement for financial spreading, but equally, we are in discussions with other customers who want to, on volume, look at some of their historical applications, loan applications. And those applications were done in a form which was scanned and saved, and the customer then was either successful or unsuccessful for the loan, and then they have some performance on the way that loan was, if it was a successful application, the payments that happened to that loan. For the purposes of accountancy, maybe for IFRS, or to increase the performance of their scorecards, they may at some point want to go back to the applications approved or declined to look at the demographic and profile of the customers that were applying for the loan at that time. And in certain situations with large volumes, they're unable to do that. So this solution is able to read those documents, scan those documents, read them, interpret them, and then lay out all that information in a digitized form. So it has multiple uses. So let's just check what's happening here. Okay, it's still running. We've been running 5 minutes, 31 seconds so far. So let's just, at some point now, I'm expecting it to have completed. And then we can go through to the next stage. And the next stage is we verify all the information that has been extracted. So this is how our customers use the solution in the early stages before they get the comfort and the confidence that the AI model is able to interpret and apply their rules without them even going in. So it's a completely automated process. We have one customer that end to end, it's almost completely automated, and they just go back and look at 5% of the forms that they're processing. So it's 6 minutes 20 for the STC one. So it should be close to being completed now. Let's just double check. Okay, completed, extracted. So it did take 6 minutes 20. So now that document has been processed through the model, and we have the ability to look at that document and see what information we've collected from it. And as you can see here, for the purposes of this, we've ignored everything in the first statement, not important to the process of financial statement. And as you noticed, it took us straight to page 3 and straight into assets. So assets, as we hover over, and we can see when we hover on the right hand side, it highlights where it extracted that information from on the left hand side. No other solution is able to do this because other solutions are using OCR, not AI. Non-current assets, it looks at those, obviously they're blank fields, so there's nothing to apply in this. Property and equipment. So now I can go through each one of these. Property and equipment, 46,097,480. Correct. This is the latest results. If we scroll across, we can see that we have 2021 results as well as 2022 results. And it's got it in the same order and the same dates. So these dates, the 31st of March, this is the 31st of December. So it's arranged this column exactly as it sees it on the financial statement which was extracted. And we can go through all of these. So we can look, we can check, we can understand where all these data assets came from. And if we saw something, we might want to make a change. So if there was something there that was an incorrect, it wasn't an 8 at the end, it was a 6 for whatever reason, we could make that change. That change would be recorded, would be audited, and the AI model would understand that change was made and what the characters were for that change, and would improve the model. And we would also know the analyst that made that change. So all of these fields are there, and we can go through the whole document right through to the last one. And the last one is the total equity and liabilities, 129,632,250. Yep, which again on the left hand side, you see that the font starts to get a bit blurry on the left hand side, but we've interpreted it with the AI model sufficiently on the right hand side. we now have this data stored. This data is now stored and is available to use for any purpose. And we know today that we're going to be using it for financial spreading, but of course we can just use it for analytical purposes, as well as other decision processes. Okay, before we go into the spreading, we just want to check that file started 1806, took 6 minutes, 20 seconds to extract. The accuracy level we expect is 100%. So there was no identifiable errors in terms of the way that the thresholds that we set within the fields recognized, and the system thinks that it's done a good job in getting all of those. It gives a breakdown in terms of where the extraction came from, balance sheet, profit loss, cash flow, and from notes. And it took 6 minutes 20. I've got that right. Okay, so what I want to do as well is I want to, before we go into the spreading, is to show the other file, because the other file is quite different. And actually, looking at here, it's it's the same size. Okay, if I drag that one in, go. Okay, so we're processing this file. Let's just check this file and see what the differences are. Okay, independent audit. It's got the contents. Okay, this is a KPMG, so a different auditing company. Again, it's a photocopy, not a very good photocopy. It's skewed down the right-hand side. The layout isn't there. The font is a bit smaller. And let's go to, okay, the ratio, the calculations, the fields that we need for the ratio calculations are there, 31st of March, 31st of December. Okay, so it's a similar layout. It's a photo, just probably not as clear, I would say, in terms of, and certainly the alignment is slightly skewed. Here it doesn't go from portrait to landscape. It just spins the page so that the landscape page has been scanned in a portrait fashion. So the writing is going sideways, which isn't a problem for our system. Okay, it's got some other information there. Okay, this one's heavier on the notes. So let's see what the system does with that. Okay, but as you can see, this is the document which we are using. None of the information is easy to look at. And what we expect is this takes an analyst, probably a skilled analyst, 4 hours to take the relevant information, check the relevant information, and use it to calculate the financial spreading and the ratios. Okay, so coming back to the platform. Okay, June the 10th, 150, 156. Okay, so this one, let's see, there was less pages on this one. So it should be a bit quicker to process. To 11. Still running, 2:30. And the good thing about this is we can have the list of all the files that are running, who's run them. So at the minute I'm logged in as sample S. So you can see that this user is the person that's uploaded these files and what review status that they are in. But equally, we could have 4 or 5 different users that can be shown here, or for the purposes of reselling, maybe you can define this by the bank, whose file it is and what process they want to run it for, so that you can have a list of bank users that maybe not necessarily have access to this system, but you understand the purpose of the process. And if it's your analysts which are running the process, they know which bank it is and they can go back in 6 months, 12 months time and look. Okay, we're still running, 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. Again, I'm not interfering with this in any way, and this is real time, the process that is taken, no manipulation from outside whatsoever. Okay, it's taking similar amount of time. Ah, look, stopped. Okay, we're back. So let's have a look at this file then. 6 minutes 37. Okay, so we can see it starts with assets, non-current assets, very similar to before. But see how it lines it up with a straight line, even though the document's slightly skewed. Receivables. I'd like to get to the page that was a landscape page in portrait mode. See what that one looks like. But the ability to just scan through the document like this is, you know, we're told by bankers is very, very useful. Okay, it's probably in here somewhere. I'm slightly missing it. Anyway, we have that. So let's have a look at an overview. So you see the capabilities, the data's identified and is able to extract. We see an overview in terms of the time started, the processing time. This one hasn't been reviewed yet, so it's not sure of the accuracy. Maybe there are some gaps with this one, but we can understand that as we start to view the file and have a look at the file. In fact, I can probably go and look at the file here. Just check. Should refresh into this environment. Okay, yeah. So we can see that this file, yeah, it's the same file, and we have two screens here, and apparently the way that bankers work or relationship managers work when they're doing the spreading calculations and the checks is they prefer to have two screens for comparison. So this was a specific requirement of one of our biggest customers, and therefore we've built it that way for them, but it can be in any way. And here we can see, okay, again, we're able to look. So these are the important fields from the balance sheet that are taken for the purposes of using that data for the financial spreading. So we've got cash and cash equivalents, total cash and investments. These are the relevant fields. We can see where that is again in the document. So we know, one, we know that it's a true representation of what's in there. And two, we can see whereabouts in the document it is so that we can refer back to it if needed to at a later time. Okay, so we have a lot of information from here which is relevant for the purposes of financial spreading. And what will happen is these fields, total assets, which is a big one, these fields are the ones that will be used in the ratio calculation in our financial spread. So what I'll do, I need to open up that system for the financial spreading. So, and I can explain why, because the financial spreading is, let's say, customized per bank, per financial institution. So they have their own financial spreading rules, which they prefer to use. And therefore, we've created a tool that gives them flexibility to develop those calculations, drag in the fields that are required, drag in the data points that are required to generate that financial ratio. So I'm going to stop this video so that you've seen the extraction. No manipulation at all happening. So the files will be the same files that then we come to show you how we do the spread on the data that we've already extracted. So thank you for taking the time to view this. I'm going to end it there, and we will come back to this for the financial spread shortly. Thank you.